There's this question that comes up constantly in therapy, but people rarely say it directly. They'll describe an argument or something their partner said or something a friend did, and then they pause and they ask, do I bring this up or do I just let it go? But underneath that question is something so much bigger. Is this worth the discomfort? Is this something I need to address, or am I just going to make everything harder? And I think we've been given this really simplistic advice about this. We hear things like communicate everything or protect your peace. But real relationships are obviously not that clean. There are moments that absolutely we need to work through. And then there are moments where processing it internally and moving on is actually a healthier choice. The hard part is knowing the difference because not every little irritation is a big boundary violation, despite what you hear on social media. And not every silence is maturity. Sometimes people push for a conversation because they feel anxious and they want relief. And sometimes people avoid a conversation because they're afraid of tension. And both of these reactions can look the same from the outside. So how do you know? The first thing I look at is pattern. If something is happening repeatedly, if you're having the same internal reaction over and over and over, that isn't random. If you keep feeling dismissed, if you keep feeling alone in the responsibility, if you keep feeling small, that should be data and not just the sign of having a bad day. Those are the hills you eventually have to stand on. Because if you don't, resentment will build, even if it's quietly. And resentment can be corrosive. It doesn't just explode immediately, but it starts to really harden you and change the relationship over time. But then there are other moments, and these ones we can't miss. Somebody snaps because they're stressed. Somebody forgets something once or twice. Someone says something kind of maybe clumsy, but not totally cruel. And you feel that irritation inside you start to rise. In those moments, it's really worth asking yourself something honest, like, am I hurt because this truly crossed a value, or because I'm already depleted, or for some other reason? That question changes everything. When we're tired, overstimulated, overwhelmed, small things feel symbolic. They feel bigger than they are. And sometimes the healthiest move is not confrontation, but it's self-regulation. It's taking a breath. It's realizing maybe this isn't a pattern, this is a moment, and letting it pass. Not suppressing it, not pretending it didn't happen, just deciding that it doesn't need more oxygen, really, to fuel that fire. This is protecting your peace. Working through something with someone requires emotional energy. It requires a sense of steadiness. It requires being willing to hear their perspective too, even if it contradicts yours and even if you don't like it. If you don't have the capacity for that, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the wiser choice is to just tend to yourself first. But here's the really important distinction. Letting something go should feel like a release, not like you're swallowing it. When you swallow something, it lingers. You replay it. You feel tight when you think about it. You mentally argue about it in the shower, in your own mind. When you truly let something go, your body should soften. You don't keep circling back to it. That's how you know. If you're still carrying it 3 days later, it probably needed air. The other thing I pay attention to is identity. If staying silent requires you to shrink yourself, that's information. If speaking up would align you with your values, even if it feels uncomfortable, that's information too. Not every single hill is worth dying on, but the hills that protect your dignity usually are. And working through something when it's needed actually builds safety. It tells the relationship, we can handle this discomfort. It deepens trust and it prevents scorekeeping. On the other hand, choosing peace when something truly is small protects your energy. It prevents unnecessary conflict. It keeps you from turning every irritation into this big, huge referendum on the relationship. But both are skills. The goal isn't to become someone who confronts everything. That would clearly get you into some trouble. And it's not to become somebody who swallows everything either, to become small, to become easy, to become complacent. It's to become somebody who can tell the difference. And that difference usually lives right in your body. Is this about my ego or my values? Is this a pattern or a moment? Will I respect myself more if I speak or if I release this? When you can answer those questions honestly, the choice becomes clearer. And either path, conversation or release, can be healthy when it's chosen consciously instead of reactively. That's the real work. Not fighting more, not fighting less, just responding with pure intention.